This is the cutting and the sewing parts of the video I posted last week. So please sit tight and enjoy this video. But first, let me start by introducing myself. Hi, my name is Eden of Lina Fashion Lounge, and I talk about everything fashion, pattern drafting, online and physical tutoring, and many more. Please share, and subscribe to my channel so you can enjoy more videos like this. So let's get started. So these are the materials that I'm going to be using for this tutorial. I'll be using my Ankara prints, my zip, my cotton, my pocket material. I'll be using cotton lining for that and thread. So I'm going to proceed to cutting. Now for the cutting, you can decide to place it of a vertical or horizontal, but because of the stripe, I cannot, because of the print of my Ankara fabric, I cannot manipulate my pattern to that extent, because I would have loved to use the vertical part of my Ankara fabric. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut out the part of the basic trouser that I don't need, which is the zipper fly and the external pockets. That's because I don't need those. Then I'm going to go ahead and pin this down. Now after pinning it down, I'm going to take my ruler and draw a straight line from the edge of the tip of the crotch. Now note, as you can see, it is a straight line. You have to make sure that the line is very straight. So I'm going to be using the tip of my crotch to get a straight line. Now this is actually optional. You can decide to make it wider, you can decide to make it smaller, depending on how you want it to be, but that is how I want mine to be. So for the side, I'm just going to add my sewing allowance or sewing ease, which I usually like to call it. But for this one, the sewing ease I added was 2 inches. Now I decided to add extra 1 inch for wearing ease for the side, so that it will not be too slim. It will be a little bit big, as you can see in the introduction video. So now after doing that, I added my sewing allowance for the inseam also, which is 1/2 inch. So sewing allowance for the inseam is half inch, while sewing allowance for the side is 1 inch. For the pocket, I also added 1/2 inch, and for the width, I added 1/2 inch also. So for the back, there are some little alterations I'm going to be doing, but they are actually not necessary for the pinnafore jumpsuits. It is only necessary for a proper jumpsuit, which is an actual jumpsuit, a full jumpsuit. Now you are for at the sleeve, you're going to slash your hip. You're going to be slashing your hip line. After slashing it, you're going to spread it by either 2 to 4 or 5 inches, depending on how big you are on the hip area. If you are very big on the hip area, you can use 4 to 5 inches. But if you are not that big, you can use 2 to 3 inches. Now this is very important because it is going to make you to sit comfortably if you are sewing an actual full jumpsuit, which is a full bodice and a trouser. That is why this comes in. This is very, very important. But if you are sewing a pinnafore jumpsuit, it is actually not important, because the back, what is going to be holding the back is just the rope. So I'm going to go ahead and pin my back trouser on my Ankara fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and add the 2 inches I added at the front. I'm going to go ahead and add it to the back, which is 1 inch for the wearing ease and 1 inch for the sewing allowance. Then I'll go ahead and add my 1/2 inch, as you can see, for the inseam and the crotch area. Then I'm going to the inseam, the crotch area. Then I'm going to go ahead and draw my straight line before adding my sewing allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. Now for the hem side, which I did not do for the front, I added 1.5 inches for the folding or sewing allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the pockets. Just as you can see here, I'm going to lay it on my cotton lining fabric. Then I'll pin it down and cut 1/2 inch for the pocket side and the other edge, then the waist at the other edge, and 1 inch at both sides. Please don't forget that you are going to be cutting 2 pocket lines. Please don't forget 2 pocket lines. This one I cut just one. Then I went ahead to cut the second one off camera. For the pinnafore, the upper part, I went ahead to cut it off camera. I could not find the video where I recorded it, so I'll be folding my fabric into 4. Then I'm going to be measuring. For me, I used my exact shoulder length to measure this. You can decide to use as much as you want, but please don't forget that it should not be too small and it should not be too big. Make sure that it is on the normal side. So for the length, I deducted 4 inches from my waist length. Then I use it to cut that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the waistband and the rope for the back of my pinnafore jumpsuit. So because my fabric is patterned, that's one disadvantage of having a specific pattern fabric. It gives you limited opportunities to manipulate the fabric. You have to follow the pattern. If you don't follow the pattern, it is going to ruin your entire design. So I'm going to go ahead and follow the pattern and cut 3 inches. You can decide to use 3.5. I think I used 3.5 here. So I'm going to cut 3.5 inches. Then I'll measure my waist and cut also. After cutting that, I'm going to go ahead and cut the rope for the back. So I'm going to be using the length of this, which is around, I think, 18 or 20 inches here. So I'm going to be using this length. Then I'm going to cut 3 inches in 2 places. I folded the fabric, as you can see, I folded the fabric into 2. So I'm going to be cutting 3.5 inches width by 18 to 20 inches length. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. So this is going to stand as my rope for the back for the pinnafore. So after doing that, we are going to proceed to sewing. So the first thing you are going to sew is the trouser, of course. So you are going to be sewing the crotch area on 1/2 inch. After sewing that, you are going to move to sewing the pocket. So you are going to to sew the pocket. You're going to sew that slant area, the opening. That's where you're going to sew first. So you're going to sew on 1/2 inch, then you top stitch. So after top stitching the pocket side, you're going to go ahead and fold the fabric. Make sure that it is equal and sew your half, the 1 inch that you removed. You're going to be sewing it here. Here I actually use ½ inch. That is because I wanted it to be more spacious, so I decided to use ½ inch instead of the 1 inch I added. So this is how it is on the after sewing it. This is how my pocket is looking. So I'm going to pin it down and continue my sewing. So after sewing, I'm going to place the front and the back together and sew on 1 inch. Don't forget that was what I added for the sewing allowance. So I'm going to be sewing on 1 inch for both the front and the back. But before that, I'm going to go ahead and mark where my zip is going to stop, so that I'll be able to know where to start sewing my side seam. So the next thing I'm going to do is in order to get the accurate measurements, your accurate side seam, I'm going to go ahead and measure my waist, the pocket side. You know what I measured for the pocket was 4 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and measure the 4 inches. So whatever that is remaining is what I'm going to use for the front seam. Don't forget that the pocket will also had allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and measure take the necessary measurement for the zip allowance, mark it with my pin, then proceed to sew on 1 inch for the side seam. Yeah. I'm going to first of all sew the inseam. The inseam is actually important. I'm going to sew the inseam first. So according to the measurements I took the ease I took when cutting. I took ½ inch. So that ½ inch is what I'm also going to be using to sew for my inseam. So after sewing my inseam, I'm going to go ahead and sew both sides at 1 inch. Don't forget that one side will be having the zipper, and while one will not. So after I've gone ahead to do that, as you can see, I've gone ahead to sew and I went ahead to overlock it. Now it is actually very important for you to know that before you start sewing, you have to first of all overlock your trouser, especially your trouser. Overlock your trouser before you start sewing. It gives it more neatness and more in-depth. So I'm going to go ahead to sew my pinnafore top. So for the pinnafore top, I'll be sewing it on ½ inch. Actually, I actually decided to make the upper part of my pinnafore smaller, as you can see here, and the lower part a little bit wider, and that is what I did. And I also made it a little bit curvy, though it's not showing here, but that was what I did. I made it a little bit curvy at the edge. Now for the rope of the back, I'm just going to go ahead and fold this and sew on ½ inch. Now you're going to be sewing the top part in and the lower part out, because the lower part is going to be joining to the band, while the top part is the one that is going to be like the secure button for the pinnafore top. So yeah, we are going to proceed to sewing the pinafore and the band together. So I went ahead to divide my waistband into 4 using my darts measurement. So after getting the middle, don't forget that the zip is at the side. That is why you are using, if you want your pinafore and if you want your zipper to be at the back, you don't need all this. All you need to do is just identify the middle of your waist and sew place the pinafore at the middle and sew with your rope. But for this one, because it's at the side, which is is very, very tricky, you first of all divide your waistband by 4. Then you identify the middle and mark it. Then you place it there, just as you can see me doing here. After placing it, you do the same thing for the back also. You divide it into 4 and get the middle of the back. Then I went ahead to measure the tip of my pinafore, that's the neck area, and that was how I got the that was how I got the measurement, and I marked it as seen. Then I went ahead to place it on them and pinned it down. So I went ahead to place the second band on the pinafore. Then I'm going to go ahead and sew on 1/2 inch. The lower part is exactly where I'm going to be sewing. I'll be sewing it on 1/2 inch. So this is how it's going to look after sewing, and I went ahead to iron it, which is actually very important. It's important for you to iron your clothes while sewing. It gives it a lot more neatness. So I'm going to take the lower part of my band and join into the waist of my trouser. Now, after sewing your waistband to your trouser, now don't forget that when sewing, you are going to be sewing the first one. You are going to be sewing it on the front side of your fabric. That's on the right side of your fabric. So you're going to go ahead and fold it on 1/2 inch, as you can see me doing here. I'm going to be folding it on 1/2 inch. Now, while folding it, you fold right on your seam. It should not be below your seam. It should be right on your seam. So you fold it on your seam, then you pin it down. You pin it down. You're going to do this throughout the waist. You fold and pin. You fold and pin. Now, don't forget, don't just use 4 pins, maybe 2 for the front and 2 for the back. No, you're going to be sewing it. You're going to be pinning it a lot. So you are going to be using a lot of pins for this to make it very, very neat. So after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and add my zipper. Can you see how neat it is? You're going to be adding your zipper. Don't forget that we have already added our sewing allowance, so you just mark it and pin your zipper here. So after sewing, you are supposed to have a neat finish like this. So I'm going to go ahead and fold the zipper, the upper part of that, I will fold it in and sew it down. So thank you guys for watching to this point. I hope you enjoyed this video, this tutorial. If you have any questions for me, please leave it down in the comment section. I'm going to make sure to answer your questions. See you guys in the next one. Bye.